where there is a complaint to the Lokpal that the MP has taken bribe. I mean, there is allegation of corruption. Now, Lokpal should bring it to the notice of the Speaker. If the Speaker doesn't make a reference, I mean, or ask the Lokpal to make further investigation within a particular time, then Lokpal should do it on its own. Some such mechanism has to be developed.
Rajiv Gandhi, Narasimha Rao, Deve Gowda, and why even Manmohan Singh? Many Indian prime ministers have faced corruption allegations, but have been protected by their office. The government's Lokpal bill seeks to continue that until a prime minister has demitted office. Team Anna disagrees. Others have suggested including the prime minister, but with safeguards.
I do not think it is advisable to keep the prime minister out of Lokpal. I'm in favor of inclusion of prime minister within the ambit of the Lokpal's powers, but with some safeguards. And safeguards not only about the exclusion of certain areas like national security or intelligence, but also safeguards like the prior sanction of the president. I mean, when the president would consider the case for sanction against the prime minister, the president should act not on the advice of Council of Ministers, but independently. Then the further safeguard should be that the prime minister should not be made vicariously liable for the acts of the other ministers.
I also noticed in one of the bills there was a suggestion that if there's a need to investigate and prosecute the Prime Minister, then that is something that should be examined by the full bench of the Lokpal. Then there should be a recommendation to the Supreme Court, and a bench of the Supreme Court should actually look at that and then confirm the recommendation. I think that is not an appropriate mechanism, because ultimately if that public official, the Prime Minister, needs legal redress, he will necessarily have to land up before the Supreme Court at some point or the other. And if the Supreme Court is itself a party to a decision to initiate an investigation or a prosecution against the Prime Minister, then there may be a question of whether he is getting a fair trial ultimately.
Last month, the Rajya Sabha voted in favour of the impeachment of Justice Soumitra Sen, an ugly reminder of corruption in the judiciary. But India's constitution follows the doctrine of separation of powers between the executive, legislature and the judiciary. And so, 2 out of 3 versions suggest keeping the judiciary out of a Lokpal's purview.
There is one very interesting aspect to it, what is known as circularity of accountability. See, as per the Jana Lokpal bill, as well as the government's draft, the Lokpal is accountable to the Supreme Court, in the sense that the power of removal is or the inquiry into the conduct of the Lokpal in case of any complaints of misbehavior or incapacity is with the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court would be also hearing cases against the orders passed by the Lokpal. Now, then surprisingly, I mean, as per the suggestion made in the Jana Lokpal bill, the Lokpal would be policing the judges. So this is really a circularity of the accountability.
Nobody should be above investigation. That's the point I wish to emphasize. Right. Let's take the judges. It's a very good illustration of what happens when you give too much protection to a department. The judges, you cannot even inquire against them, because they've established a procedure that if you want an inquiry, you need the permission of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So when the police goes to him and says, "Sir, we want to inquire against this judge," he says, "Yeah, but what's the evidence? Where's the evidence?" So the policeman says, "Sir, we don't have any evidence now, but let us do a preliminary investigation, a preliminary inquiry, and then we'll come out with the evidence." So it's a question of the egg and the chicken. I mean, how do you expect proof to be produced before a preliminary investigation? So that is really blocking all inquiries against judges. And it's amazing that they get away with it.
judges are not public servants in the classic case of public servants. Judges have there's a larger context of protecting judges that is required to be had, and they have to have some cases of immunity and so on and so forth, given the fact that they are actually adjudicating disputes and prescribing and adjudicating matters of law. So the argument is, and I think there is merit in that judicial accountability and oversight should be through a separate body.
We've covered a whole gamut of issues, and there are several more important ones to come, including investigative powers, the issue of state versus centre when it comes to a Lokpal bill that also imposes a Lok Ayukt structure. Unfortunately, on this show, we're entirely out of time. But if you enjoyed the conversation we've had up till now, may I urge you to tune in for the full 1 hour special on the weekend, only on CNBC TV 18.